The Bearcats can achieve something in 2023 that has not been achieved in nearly 70 years.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning. Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. It's free and available everywhere that you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel and follow it to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. My name is Alex Frank, your host each and every day here on Locked On Bearcats. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Cincinnati Bearcats, for the first time since 1946 through 1953, they can, in 2023, achieve a sixth consecutive winning season. That has not been done since the mid-1950s. And I say that because of what I talked about yesterday. I wrote about this on All Bearcats. Relevancy should matter to you because it matters to me. When you experience as a sports fan your team being irrelevant, it's not fun. So when your team becomes relevant, yes, your expectations become greater. Yes, you hope they win the national championship. But at the same time, what should matter to you is that you never go back to being irrelevant. When you matter on a local level, but you don't matter on a national level. The Bearcats in 2020 and 2021, the two most fun seasons in program history, because they were in the conversation, and also 2009. They were in the conversation to play for a national championship. And that is what makes being a fan fun. When you're in the conversation, when every single week is a build-up to another big game. 2021, every game felt big for the Bearcats. If the Bearcats lost, their season was over. It was that nervousness and it was that anticipation. So, yes, the Bearcats program might be in a rebuild. We've talked about that this offseason already. We're going to talk about it again. By the way, programming note, live room later today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Yours truly and Russ Heltman. But the fact that the Bearcats are still relevant, the fact that they are going into the Power 5 conference, all you should expect from this team is make a bowl game and have that winning season. That can be 7-6. That can be 8-5. It can be anything that's 7-6 or above. That's what matters to me. That's being relevant in the Big 12. That's being relevant on a national level. All that stuff matters to me, and it should matter to you. 6 straight winning seasons. It's only been done twice in program history. The other time, in addition to 1949 through 1954, it was done from 1930 through 1935. Is that 6 straight? Yes. 1930 through 1935. That's 6 winning seasons. And by the way, that was when they didn't play. Well, in some seasons they played 12 games, like in 1950, but not consistently. In the modern college football, the Bearcats have not had a stretch of 6 straight winning seasons. Even in the stretch where they have gone to a bowl game in 13 of the previous 16 years, they haven't had 6 straight winning seasons. They had a losing season in 2010. They had a losing season, of course, in 2016 and 2017. And by the way, yes, they won. They had a winning record from 11 through 15. But in 2010 and 2016, they didn't, and therefore it wasn't 6 consecutive. The Bearcats can achieve that this year. 6 straight winning seasons. Again, the Bearcats do not have, and I know a lot of you don't want to hear this. I've said it once, I'll say it again. The Bearcats are not at the pedigree historically that a Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Georgia, Clemson, etc. And you can maybe exclude Clemson. Actually, well, in the modern college football, yes. Historic pedigree. The Bearcats are not that. Yet. It takes a decade at least, probably multiple. The Bearcats just entered relevancy. They were relevant in 08 and 09. Then they weren't once the Big East dissolved. Now they are. Be appreciative of that. Be appreciative that this program is about to potentially get a 6th consecutive winning season. Something that has not been done since the Eisenhower administration. Yeah, 1954. You know how long ago that was? Both my parents were not born yet. My grandparents were probably in high school. The Bengals weren't in existence. Heck, the AFL still existed. That's where we are. That was before Oscar Robertson, for Bearcat purposes. Oscar Robertson had not played for Cincinnati yet. That's how long it's been since the Bearcats have had 6 straight winning seasons. We now get to potentially witness that in year 1 of the Big 12. All because the Bearcats are relevant. Again, your expectations might be higher. That's fine. But all I am saying is be appreciative of what this program has done over the last 5 years. Because they're not Alabama or Ohio State just yet. Have they beaten any of those programs? No. Have they come close? Yeah. But they haven't beaten them yet. They're going into the Power 5. Let's see what they do once they get there. Well, we all thought the Big 12 schedule was going to be out by today. It turns out that's not the case. It's going to be released, according to a report, later this month, towards the end of the month. So we don't have a schedule to talk about, but I'm going to talk about the games that I'm most looking forward to seeing and hoping gets put on the schedule this year, at least, in the Big 12. We'll do all that after I tell you how this episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup, we've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. Now make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So the Bearcats in the Big 12 next year, games I'm looking forward to seeing. There's 2 in particular that I hope get put on the schedule. One is UCF. I think the Big 12 has to recognize what that rivalry was in the American Athletic Conference, and that it could be a huge rivalry in the Big 12. Both fan bases are incredibly passionate. I know Bearcat fans, I think UCF's fan base kind of, UCF fans can kind of irk Bearcat fans. I think UCF has a great fan base. That university has a tremendous athletic department. They deserve to be in the Big 12. I'm happy they're coming to the Big 12 with Cincinnati. They deserve it. Say what you will about their football program and that it hasn't been to a New Year's Six Bowl since 2018. Say what you will about their fake national championship. They're deserving of being in the Power 5 conference. And I think after what we saw with that rivalry between the Bearcats and UCF, there were three. 2019, obviously a classic at Nippert Stadium. Bearcats beat UCF, really uprooting UCF's place at the top of the conference. Then the Bearcats win a classic in Orlando in 2020, 36-33. And then UCF wins a close one this past year. So they played three really close games. The Bearcats and UCF both won 2 conference championship games. They also won a conference championship before the inception of the conference championship game. So there is a lot of success between these two programs. I do think that it's going to be a rivalry heading into the Big 12. I want to see that rivalry continue. If it is on the schedule this year, I hope it's in Cincinnati because it was in Orlando this past year. West Virginia, bring back that rivalry. Cincinnati and West Virginia obviously were in the Big East. West Virginia's been in the Big 12 for the last decade. I think their first year was 2013, but let me make sure that I know for a fact that I am almost certain that it has been since 2013. Let me just confirm that. And yes, 2012, 2012, their first year in the Big 12 in football. So they've been in the Big 12 for 11 years. And I think if you're a Cincinnati fan, obviously the Bearcats got on the wrong side of conference realignment 10 years ago. Obviously, 2016 happened. But let that go. You're in the Big 12 now. You're going to be reunited in that rivalry with the Mountaineers. We all know that it's the closest team geographically to Cincinnati. I can't wait for the game at Nippert Stadium. The color scheme is going to be great with the red, black, and gold, and then going to West Virginia, country roads take me home. That's going to be nice to get back in there. So, the success that both teams had in the Big East, the success that that the Bearcats have had recently, I think it's going to create for a really unique rivalry. Outside of that, BYU is going to be an interesting experience if the Bearcats go to Brigham Young. And here's the thing about joining the Big 12. Like the Bearcats, they haven't really had to travel west. I mean, the Big East was the Big East. The American, the farthest west they went was Tulsa. So going to Provo, Utah, that's going to be a challenge. You're crossing 2 time zones. You're going to the Mountain Air. You're going out west. And you're going to face a team with a, great tradition in history in Brigham Young, who obviously, the Bearcats had that rivalry with in 2020 as far as, who the best group of 5 independent team was besides Notre Dame. And, I think Cincinnati proved far and away they were the better of the two. So interesting rivalry there between 2 passionate fan bases, 2 football-rich history schools. I'm really excited to see how that is going to play out. If the Bearcats do have to go to Brigham Young, obviously, if you remember 2016, the BYU came to Cincinnati and took it to Cincinnati, and that was the game, if my memory serves me correct, I know this is right, where Tommy Tuberville told everybody to go to hell and get a job. So that's going to bring back some memories if BYU comes to Cincinnati. If the Bearcats go to Utah, it's going to be obviously a very, very difficult challenge. Texas Tech going to Lubbock. That's going to the west side of Texas. That's going like just outside of New Mexico. That's going to be true southwest weather. And if you go there in September, good luck. That's going to be unique. Kansas to Kansas State. I'm excited for the Bearcats to go to all these places that we don't really know a lot about, like Lawrence, Kansas. We know Kansas is a basketball school, which I'll touch on Friday, basketball games. Kansas basketball is a tradition and one of the most successful programs. Kansas State, Manhattan, Kansas, don't really know a lot about that. TCU is going to be interesting. TCU is a lot like Cincinnati. If you remember 2009, 2010, they were right on the fringe of the championship conversation. They didn't play for a national championship, but they went to the Fiesta Bowl with Andy Dalton. They won the Rose Bowl with Andy Dalton in 2010. And then they had some years, I know in 2014, they arguably should have been in the college football playoff. I don't know if I totally agree with that. They got in this year. They beat Michigan. They played for the national championship. TCU, like the Bearcats, I think this year was their breakthrough. You know, they've had some really good teams in the past. A program that you really didn't start to pay attention to nationally, again, national relevancy, until maybe 10, 12 years ago, 09, 10, right when they joined the Big 12. So the Bearcats are finally at the Power 5 table with teams like West Virginia and TCU, who got into the Big 12 years ago. So really excited to see who's on that schedule at the end of the month. Houston would be interesting. Dana Holgerson's coached in the Big 12 before. And really just excited to see, learn about these schools and places that the Bearcats have not been to. A new conference, going to Baylor and how passionate that fan base is, going to Oklahoma State, and that's another game too. Going to Boone Pickens Stadium, a very, very tough place to play in Stillwater, where the visitors bench is right up against the stands. So really looking forward to seeing what games exactly get put on the schedule. All right, so after we hear from two of our sponsors, I'm going to set up something that Russ and I are going to talk about later today in our live room, because I feel like we haven't really talked about it, but it's an important aspect of the offseason for the Bearcats. I'll get into that after we hear from two of our sponsors. So we know Ivan Pace has declared for the NFL draft, but we really haven't heard from DeShawn Pace. Now, I talked with Russ Heltman yesterday. I texted him. I'm like, what have you heard about DeShawn Pace? And he goes, I can actually read the text verbatim. And he says, sounds like he's going to be a prominent piece of the defense. And that's all you need to know. We will touch on that later today, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live room, yours truly, and Russ Heltman from All Bearcats and Sports Illustrated. So plenty more to get to today. We'll, of course, look ahead to tonight's men's basketball game between the Bearcats and USF. Bearcats completing a 2-game road trip before they come home for their weekend showdown with Memphis on Sunday. Lots left to get to this week. Thanks, as always, for making us Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. How about for your second listen, check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Experts Isaac Shade, and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court, plus hear from big-name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. I'm Alex Frank for Locked On Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for always making us your first listen every day. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll be back later today, live room at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Russ Heltman. That'll be in podcast form tomorrow, and then back after the Bearcats and USF, recapping that game right here on Locked On Bearcats.